Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chakra Meditation Podcast. I'm Roseanne, your host, and today I have another first, which I'm really excited about. I've got not only two people, but they are a couple. So today I have Jennifer Poland and Daryl Gurney joining me, and um, the main drive of what I want to kind of delve into today is the divine feminine and divine masculine and how they interact. But I think we're going to get into so many things. Daryl is a metaphysical therapist. Jennifer is a prophet. She's also an author. She has a new book coming out. So there is so much to talk about: spiritual partnerships, messages, connecting with spirit, all with the sort of umbrella over the top of understanding what it is to embrace our divine feminine and our divine masculine, because I feel like we all have both of those within us. Um, anyway, we'll get more into it. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for welcoming us. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
So tell me a little bit about individually, because you've only been together, you've been married a few years, 4 years, something like that.
We've been married, or we've been together almost 5 years, married
Right.
a year and something. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So before this moment where you found each other and got together and created this, probably more than the sum of the parts that you two create, I feel.
Right.
What were you doing individually? And then I want to hear how, when you came together, what then manifested.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was basically, I characterize myself as a mind-body therapist for a long time. I've been in the metaphysical world, like I guess 30 years. So it started out. I started out as a massage therapist, and really found out that it wasn't getting any kind of lasting results with people, and I realized that a lot of the problems were coming from armoring, and then if you loosened it up, it would come right back. And I realized, okay, well, we have to figure out what's going on underneath the surface that's having them to hold themselves so tight, or whatever, how it was showing up for people. And so that really set me on a journey of studying and learning. And I was a workshop junkie for many, many years, and I couldn't get enough. I just kept, and then as soon as I would learn these things, I'd take them out and try them out on the guinea pigs that were my clients. And of course, really started to get much better results with people. And really in that started to recognize that you know people really need to be responsible for their own healing. We have this kind of idea, this illusion in the world that things happen to us. The container holds that, and that, well, I'm hoping that there's something I can just take and make it go away. But in the basically in this field, we're basically looking at symptoms are the messenger. They're not the problem so much. The symptoms are letting us know that there's something going on at a deeper level that needs our awareness. And
Yeah,
theoretically, once you get the message, you don't need the messenger anymore. So
exactly.
what is our body trying to tell us? And of course, the body is a metaphor for what's going on at a deeper level. And so we've all grown
Mhm.
up and wrestled different demons and had different challenges, and we metabolize them, internalize it, and make it mean something. So it's like, oh, it's I got in trouble for having fun as a kid, and because my dad was real serious, and it's like, oh, it's not okay to have fun becomes a belief system. And then you become identified with responsibility in the world, and or just an example or something, and then that part of you goes into shadow, and then you judge it in others, and it'll just grows all these heads, and then it turns into something. So
Mhm.
we have to start to wind it back and start to understand what's going on in the subconscious, because there's a phrase I love: the problem with the unconscious is it's unconscious. And so we have to bring that unconscious material into awareness where we can work with it. And
Mm.
so there's various ways of doing that. And so that, if you're doing meditations or muscle testing or whatever. So I developed a different ways of working. And then it turned into essentially teaching, because I was helping people try to empower them to learn how to help them heal themselves. Because if it was situations that happened in their lives somewhere along the line that's now turned into this problem, how can anyone outside of them actually change that? They need to be intimately involved in their own healing process. And so support is crucial, but they ultimately need to be part of reperceiving things in a new way. And when they do that, then they go, oh my God, I did this, or I was part of it. And then if I can do this, what else can I do?
What's possible?
What's possible? So it puts us back in the seat of our own power, which is a great place to be, so we don't feel like we're a victim to life. And so that journey really, uh, it went on and on until I was teaching and then working with clients, and that was kind of my journey. And then I'll turn it over to Jen, and she can tell you a little bit, and then maybe we can talk about how it sort of came together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, and what I would say is I think Daryl encapsulated the masculine part, or his role in the power of two. This is kind of what someone helped us kind of it's like, who are we and what's our identity, and in terms of how we've stepped into our role as healers together. And so I'll kind of fill in some of those points. But for me, I was a mom. I was at, I was married for a long time. I was, in a relationship for like 24 years, raised two boys. And I would say my spiritual journey really took place in the kitchen, if you want to call it that, because I think the mirrors of the kitchen, like our children, basically showing me who I was, and where I was falling short, and where I was, missing the mark. And I think it helps a lot of people at home kind of simplify these very, can sound very esoteric journey. It's really about your life, and it's about the willingness to be present, to be responsible, as Daryl eloquently shared, but also to be the witness of how we're showing up in relationship. And so my spiritual awakening, really, I was very awake as a child. I would see like very, very connected from the beginning. I've always understood and known and seen beings. I had Mother Mary appeared to me when I was young. I've had all kinds of experiences of this nature, but that was just the beginning. When I was 28, I had a dramatic spiritual awakening because I had veered off a little. And that's when the voice of the creator came through very strongly and put me back on my path. And from that point, I would be in a bookstore, kind of in the esoteric section, trying to understand what I was going through. And I started channeling. And channel is not I don't love the word because it can be, I don't know, there's all kinds of connotations. But basically, I listened to the voice that wanted to speak. And so I work with all kinds of luminaries, primarily the divine, in terms of the divine mother, divine father, how it kind of manifests in the feminine and masculine god goddess side. But many of the luminaries would come through, and I would write. And so I wrote and wrote and wrote and tried to understand the cosmic principles, what we're being guided from, through testing it and experimenting it in my own life as a mom. And then my professional practice unfolded when my kids were older. A lot of females that are on the spiritual path want to rush their children to grow up so that they can jump into this purpose that's calling them. But their greatest purpose that they've chosen is to really embrace motherhood, because there's so much value and importance that I think we've diminished in the pursuit of accomplishing things. And so I really understood that, and I really waited for my boys to reach, I think, their teenage years before I really stepped fully into it. And I had retreats and practices and such. And anyway, so the coming together of Daryl and we met. I actually attended one of his workshops. I gathered a few things because I didn't have this more masculine side of approaching. I had a very more prophetic, message oriented healer side of me very developed. And so when we met, I knew, I was like, oh, this is someone that can fill in that part. We were colleagues for many years until we came together as a couple. And so recently, in the last 3 years, the divine has had us practice together. And so our practice has explored many new paths. We've pioneered uncharted territories, I think, as a couple, because we've filled in the missing parts, and it's quite wonderful. So. Mm-hmm. That's a long answer, but that,
It is.
that
It's brilliant. So
You only have to ask 2 questions and you're done.
yeah, exactly. I feel like I can just kind of, go and then we'll just keep
oh, we can just keep yakking.
we just keep on yakking. But no, I do want to, however, just nail down on the divine feminine, divine masculine aspect. And like it's really, I find it very interesting because people who've done the work, people who've been in this esoteric world, like the language that we use and the sort of the ideas that we have, they're so formed, it feels like it's just kind of like second nature. It's like, well, of course it's like that, it's like it just seems too obvious to explain. So, but I do want to just wind it back just a little bit so that we can all fully really understand what it is to hold the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And I can tell you what my sort of take on it is, but I feel like you're going to take it to a whole new level.
Yes. Yeah.
So for me, the divine feminine is connecting with that deep creative nurturing power. And for the divine masculine, I see that as the protective, productive energy of life. And now that's like a really short way of putting it, but I don't, want to step off the tracks of this very basicness too much. Is that where you are feeling you working like because I can tell obviously Jennifer, you're like super intuitive, super in touch.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Daryl, you've got like all these incredible tools and this like very deep understanding of patterns, behavior, energy, and so on. Like you really kind of, I imagine like you kind of enjoy a bit of quantum physics. I'm like, that sort of whole energy thing.
Yes.
So you really do represent these two sides of the whole, but then how do we bring out the divine? Because I would imagine that most people who identify as female want to bring out that divine feminine because it's such an innately beautiful, powerful, and often I think that the divine feminine is the strongest, most powerful, most potent force that there is. And, it's been suppressed for various reasons. Let's not get into it because, we could be here all day. But there is so much beautiful strength in the divine masculine that I think a lot of people don't understand is this protective, this productive, this kind of. So I don't know. I mean, does that resonate with you? Is that where you're coming from as well, or have you got a slightly different angle on it?
Well, I've got spirit yakking at me, so I'm gonna get that off my chest, and then I'll give it over to Daryl because it's hard for me to hold it all. So, and I'm speaking to a little bit of him just because I want to get 2 words out that are really important. So when we work, words are powerful. They open up like mystery, magic, information codes, their program, like they awaken
They have
things in us, right?
vibration, don't they? They're just
Oh, there's so much. So you can take one or two words. And so I think the masculine, the 2 words that the spirit has gifted us that we have been, we do a lot of work on the collective. So so we see our clients, and then outside of that, but maybe about 5 hours a day, we are working on us, ourself, our work, and the collective, and changing the vibration in the field so that it can offer people an opportunity to step into it. Because the influence from outside of us, like the polarity issues that we're having in terms of light and dark, they're at a max right now. The darkness is really heavy on people, and so they're feeling depressed. They can't do it. They're inhibited, and so the spirit's yak. So we have to address that. So it's not that sometimes it's harder to do it because it's true. There's something pushing back. But that doesn't negate what we need to step into. That's the shadow of ourself that we're giving into. So the 2 words for the masculine are responsibility and integrity. And so the ability for our masculine self, our men, and the masculines within the feminine is to step in and take responsible for a responsibility for their karma. And so karma can be, can sound scary, but it's how we take our power back. And so when we take our power back, oh my gosh, like what is possible? The 3rd chakra says, I can do this. I am strong. I believe in myself. But how do we get to the 3rd chakra? We have to build the base and the second, and the feminine being held in the emotions. And now I want to speak to the emotional side. We have been brainwashed to believe that our emotions and our instinctual nature is less than. Our primal state is feeding us information in the field all the time about threat, truth. Is that something that resonates with my body? Am I listening to my body? So our work has really been uncovering the instinctual nature and the feminine connection to our emotional empowerment. And so when we can take that and when we can appreciate the power that lies within the base chakra, our kundalini, then when we're coming up into the heart, we have a chance. We have a chance to develop those intimate connections. We have a chance to reach our full potential, but we can't get there without those very vital pieces. And I know you have lots to add. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's it's very interesting. You know, you mentioned karma, and I think it's good to talk a little bit about karma because people are saying, well, what's my purpose in life? And usually we just equate that with our career, but it goes much more than that. I mean, that may be an aspect of it and so on, but essentially one of the things is to resolve our karma. And I think karma is something that maybe is slightly misunderstood and so on. And we think it's basically the universe giving us our comeuppance from something that we did in, you know, and so on. But it can look like that, I think, because it's wanting us to learn through experience. Mm-hmm. Right. And so if you know, abused power in a past life, that's a common one, then, you know, you have your life review at the end of your life, and then you come in, you go, I need to experience what it's like to be on the other side of that. And then you're put in a position in life, whatever, where now you're being abused, and it's like you have that experience. You go, it feels terrible. It isn't, you know, I feel like I have no power. And then we learn that. And so then as a result of learning that, the next time we're in the position of power, we won't abuse it and so on. So, so it's basically, that's what karma is supposed to be in every way you can imagine. Whatever it is you're wrestling with, very often it's about, oh, it's like to have the experience and then to understand and learn from that experience.
And it's mathematical, I would say.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we learned that very interestingly enough is like, you know, when you see energetic dynamics, they are, and that's essentially what we're working with all the time is energetic dynamics, is they're absolutely mathematical. And so it's like nature hates a void. So if you've pushed something away in your life, then you're going to attract that in, and it's mirroring something that you need to embrace to become more whole on the journey and so on. So this is all about, so when you take responsibility, then you have the ability to respond, right? Now you're in your power place, right? And so this then becomes this whole idea of looking at life very much in a self-referral kind of a way. It's like, I've drawn this into my life, interesting, without judgment. Mm-hmm. Why is that alive in my life? And then when you can look at that, then you can make shifts and changes, and then you can look at what's being mirrored now. It's like, oh, it's changed. Oh, okay, cool. But if we're just pointing at what's out there and that is a problem, then you're powerless, then you're a victim, then you're a martyr, then you're whatever, and there's no change. And then we just feel like this, and we're often running down a road of pointing fingers and judgment and so on. So it's very useful for us to start to recognize that we do create our own reality, but we do it mostly unconsciously. And so our belief systems that we hold to be true, and so many of them, we don't believe it consciously often, but unconsciously we have beliefs like, I'm not important, no one will ever love me, there's something wrong with me, I'm a mistake, and I'm not special or whatever. And then we hold those to be true, and then we operate as if they're true, and then it prints out in our life, right? So right. Then, but we were never given the rules of the game, so it's hard to know how to play. Right. And so this is part of the work that we want to do, is to offer people a bit of a map, a compass in a way, so that they can start to go, oh, I understand. Mm-hmm. This is why that's showing up. And then now you're in the place where you can start to take charge of your own life. And then that's useful. So that is a little bit of, I think, you know, how we kind of see things.
I love that. And I think that you're so right. When things come into our lives, and we go, oh, why is this happening to me? And then you're like, oh, the narrative is, oh, this always happens to me. And there's a resistance. And the more we resist it, the more it comes in, because we have to let it pass through before it will process. We have to allow it to process. If we're holding it away and going,
Yeah.
resist it, then it's just going to stick around, and it's just going to get heavier and bigger and push us over until we let go. And I think that's one of the things that is so valuable when you're doing energy work, is to succumb, to surrender to what is happening in your life, and to bring that awareness into all of the patterns and belief systems, exactly as you've been saying, Daryl. Like, if we just go, oh, that's just the way I am, then great, then that's just the way you're going to be. But if you actually want to have change, you have got to be really mindful about it and really work hard. So this work that we're doing in order to try and break free of these patterns and belief systems, which have been, piled on through whatever and through ancestors, let alone our current lives.
Right.
What are your modalities for helping people? Obviously, I teach people about the energetic body, about the chakra system, because that, for me, that gives the map of understanding where you're holding stuff and being able to process it. It's nice and neat. I like that. But what are your modalities in terms of like helping people to discover their own divine feminine, their own divine masculine? And actually, yeah, let's come back to I want to know from you what you feel that the divine feminine holds, because we've kind of gone into the masculine,
I
but
know. I was waiting for to finish that sentence. Yeah. Yeah. So before we were going on, Spirit's like, say that. So I think what's beautiful with our system is, I think when I was on my own as a young child, and even as a practitioner on my own, is I had all of these incredible skills, right? In terms of, but the container that for the mass, I had to hold that container as well. And so I didn't have a partner that was able to step in and hold the power of the strength of to contain the energy that I was able to bring through. And so when Daryl and I coupled, it was like permission. And what it has allowed me to do is even to get into a bigger omnipresent state. So when we work, I know it's amazing. When we work with a client, and I'll get to our modality in a moment, but he holds that integral, responsible protector energy so well that I can totally open up into such a big state. And the depth that we go to get work with a client, there's one on our Google reviews, it's like one session changed my whole life. Like, we can go in and pull out very specific, very, very deep, because I'm able to open up and go that deep. And so the channeling got bigger, everything got bigger. And then through our work, where we're going is, how does that show up not only in ourselves, but intimately in harnessing our sexual creativity, our sexual kundalini. So sacred sexuality is a big part. I'm channeling a new book now. And so that's where Spirit wants to take us. So they're like, yes, this is your individual state of harnessing the kundalini through the chakra system. And now, how does that show up when you couple as in sacred sexuality, in sacred sex? So we're working through that piece. And so in our practice, it took us about 3 years, and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. But when you speak to the process that we were given by the divine.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Like, when we combined our practices, it was very interesting when Spirit asked us to do that, because we each had our individual practice, and there was COVID, so we were working like over Zoom and everything. And then Spirit asked, and I always like, well, I thought it might be just a good idea to always just to surrender to Spirit. But they ask you to do things, you're like, what the hell? You combine our practice. I was like, well, you can't charge twice as much, so it was like,
It's a lot of surrender.
it was like, okay, so we're going to do this and take a huge pay cut. I was a little bit more resistant to that at first. So, but in doing that, because here was this thing that Jen was talking about, holding the container, and then she can go deeper. And then it was like just this massive discovery of learning so many things that, I couldn't read in books. Like, we learn so much more about ancestral patterns and karmic patterns and what goes morphic fields and energetic dynamics and what goes on beyond the veil. And just there's just myriad of influences that go in. Dark magic is
extraterrestrials,
all kinds of stuff,
everything,
all kinds of stuff that's there when you start looking, and without expectation and just dealing with what shows up. And but as a result of that, it was a bit of a process. And then so as it turned, like for a long time, our sessions were 3+ hours in length that we would work, but it was a deep dive, and we were combining our skills. But for me, I always use muscle testing to be able to figure out what's going on at a deeper level. And then that it requires just me asking the right questions. So that is it takes a while to figure out what question to ask. Whereas just psychics, whoa, you could just, I go, yeah, that's right. And so we could just figure things out a whole lot quicker. And we could go a lot deeper. Like you said, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so it was this really beautiful discovery thing, and the results were crazy. People's lives change and problems go away and things like that. But it changes how they are in the world, which is more important, and so on. So then but Spirit put the boots to us. Like we had to do
rigorous tests.
Oh boy. And so we worked because we were teaching this new workshop, and it was, but we had to get there ourselves. And so we had to do so much inner work, like hours and hours and hours. And then eventually they gifted us this new process to be able to teach in a workshop and offer, and then also kind of a modified version of our own work with clients that was much more efficient. And so it is a chakra-based process, but it helps people really get in there and access what's going on at a deeper level, bring it to the surface, and then a way to resolve it. So that was what came out of us having to get there to be able to hold the codes for this ourselves. And then once we had that, then we could basically bring that out. And so we're doing that in a workshop format, and then we're planning on putting it online, the workshop, so people can get that there. And but also we went down to New Mexico and Sedona, and
Spirit asked us to go down there.
Yeah.
So like, okay, you're going to go to.
Had to go. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for an upgrade, but yeah. So.
Oh, it was crazy, right? So yeah, so we got a little RV, and we were driving down, and we were taking. They were saying that there was this one place that they wanted us to go to, and it was kind of crazy little adventure, because they said, where is it you want us to go to get this upgrade? Because it wanted to be essentially outside Wi-Fi and morphic fields and people and everything. So I'm muscle testing on a map, and then it says they want us to go here, and then we Google searched it, and it was like a cemetery
in New Mexico.
And so we're driving down, and long story. So now that was before we left, and then we got on the trip, and now we're on this road, and it's a dirt road, and we're in this RV and losing our dental fillings, and we're going along this road. And well, actually, even before that, they said, well, where are we supposed to go on this road? Because it's this huge, big road. And then it was like, they want us to go, well, the road kind of arched up, and then there was an offshoot from this road. And then they said, well, we're going up this offshoot. And I went about this far, I must have right here on the map. So we're going up this road in this RV, and there's nowhere to turn around. Like it's just like this single sort of, and we're driving. I was like, oh God, where are we going? And we were a little nervous. And then Jen was like, you sure this is right? And I go, I'm getting that it's right. And then we muscle test, and they go, here's that turn, and we're supposed to go up there. And then it looks like we're going into nowhere, right?
We're 9 kilometers in the mountains.
9 kilometers in the mountains.
9K, I know, and with a little, and nowhere to turn around.
Yeah, so we finally, again, I go, no, keep going. And then we get to this little place, and it's like this, it's like almost like a campsite. It's at this old abandoned hiking trail, and it's beautiful. Actually, you can see the cliff faces, and there's this little place, and we could turn the RV around. I said, here it is. And we found it just where it pointed to on the map.
Yeah.
And we go there, and and this is what they wanted us to do. So we're like, all right. And then we go there, and then we're okay, now what? And Jen had to go into basically
They put me to sleep. They're like,
asleep.
you're going to go to sleep for half an hour. This is spirit. So just to fill in one connector piece, I think it's missing is, so we were doing our sessions. They were 3 hours long, and spirit says, we're going to give you this upgrade, and you're going to go on a trip. And it's going to be your 50th. I turned 50 and we had our wedding. So we hadn't taken a honeymoon. So they're like, yeah, go to Sedona. Well, we need you to go to New Mexico. So just a little fill in of the story. So we're like, okay. So we prepare for months to go on this trip. And then we find ourselves on this road. And they're like, you need to go up into we didn't know they were the mountains. We just know they were on this, but it was 9 kilometers in, and you're going to be there for 5 hours. And we said, okay. So we get there, and we're sitting in the mountain space. And I said, okay, I'm asking them, okay, now what? And I could just feel sleep. And I said, oh, they want me to go to sleep. And so for 30 minutes. And so Daryl, protects space, and I am put in this, asleep just between, like in between when you're just falling asleep, you have a sense of where you are. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I was, I don't know, attuned. I was taken out of my body and attuned to this frequency that we've been able to bring back into our practice. And this attunement, and I mean, it sounds esoteric, but that's what the feminine offers. We offer the mystery to really the magic that's happening in our lives that we have no explanation for, right? And so this attunement has just changed everything. And so much so that our clients, one client in particular, I said, oh, we asked her after we were doing the process with her, oh, what was your experience? And she's like, oh, I was in the mountains. I felt like it was, and I'm like, oh, you were exactly where I was. So this portal that's been opened, I guess, through this connection, this divine connection that we've strengthened is, it's been quite profound. So we're now in, we can do shorter sessions. We're about an hour and 15 minutes with people, and doing more.
You accomplish more in much less time. So it just became super focused and condensed. And so, yeah, get to the heart of the matter quick.
Yeah. So we're just waiting for it to unfold.
And I love the fact, because it's interesting, when at the beginning, when we were talking, I was saying, we all have that masculine, feminine energy. We want to find a balance within. But what you've described to me is that in coming together, Jen, you've managed to go deeper, like really deep into your feminine. And Daryl, you just stand in your masculine, like fully, like you've created that perfect yin yang situation with yourself, between you, which is incredibly powerful. I know that there will be a lot of people listening to this who go, listen, I'm on a path. I love this work. I feel like I'm connected to spirit, or I'm connected to, I'm really interested in this topic. But my partner thinks it's all a load of hooey. And I just wish that he would, or she would, just join in on this, and understand and be in partnership with me on this journey. Because it is so special. It's so binding when you have that connection. And I know that, from experience, when you're in that alignment in your spiritual journey with your partner, there's nothing can stop you. Life is just incredible. But if they're not, then it's a challenge, because you kind of have to suppress yourself. And also, you're missing that big chunk. You kind of like, yeah, I have to hold the feminine, but I also have to protect myself. And then it's a difficult balancing act to do. So you guys super, I'm not going to say you're lucky to have found each other, because you're obviously clearly twin souls, flames, whatever you want to call it, and meant to be. But if you're with somebody who is not attuned to this, how do you deal with somebody who's very much on their own and wants to kind of embrace this energy?
Well, yeah, I mean, the one aspect that I think that gets missed a little bit is that when we're talking again about the mirrors, I mean, and people have been trying to change others, all through history. It doesn't work real well.
No, it doesn't work. No, you have to. They have to go if they're only called. Yeah.
But you can change yourself. And when we were talking about the mathematical energetic dynamics, that then becomes very, very interesting, because we're all energetically entangled with each other. right? And so what happens is all archetypes exist, right? All the energy is there. If it's in the world, it's in us, essentially, right? But what happens is in the development of personality as we're growing up, we went, oh, if I smile, I get more attention. If I cry, I get punished. I'm going to kill crying. I'm going to become a smiler. Like, this is just one example, because energy exists in polarity, right?
Yes.
So there's like liberal and conservative and doing and being and, loud and quiet and everything, right? And so this is why opposites attract, is that when we've pushed away an energy in ourselves, then what's going to happen is we're going to pull that person into our lives. And so the wisdom is to be able to look at there and say, what are they mirroring to me? And see, because you can't, if you've pushed away, because let's use a very common example in our world. And I was, this too is part of my journey, was we all migrated up into our minds. And we're saying the linear logical mind, science is our God, this is good. And right. And so what's on the other side of our rationality is our emotionality. And so emotionality gets pushed away. But you can't destroy energy, not possible. So that energy has to go somewhere, and then somebody carries it. So in the nuclear family, the person who carries the disowned family energy from the family group is called the black sheep. And the black sheep of the family is now carrying that energy. So not only they have their own emotional stuff, they're carrying everyone else's emotions. And sometimes it's karma and many other things. But in that situation, then what happens is, because we pushed it away in ourselves and judge it in ourselves, we judge it in them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So you want to know what your shadow is. A quick way to get there is, who do you judge? Who pushes your buttons? Who pisses you
Who
off?
really annoys you? Because that is exactly
Right.
yes.
Oh, you can't have enough ice cream on the humble pie. You have to eat on this journey. Right. So this then becomes, and that takes a lot of strength, and that's where the courage comes in, is to have the humility. And it's not easy always.
Oh, no.
But this is what's asked, and there's great riches in taking that back. So if you can see what that partner is caring for you, when you take back, let's say in our example, emotions, if you take back your emotions, then that other person doesn't have to carry them for you.
Yeah.
And they become a little less like that, you become a little more like that, and you come closer together instead of polarizing farther apart.
Yeah.
And I would add to that. So Spirit would just like to add, I think too many people give up too quickly. And I think that there's a lot of giving up and a lot of loss in our energy. So we've gone from like, I can't leave my marriage because, socially, it's not socially unacceptable, to I'm out of here. I can do better. And where are we in the middle of that journey, right? So Spirit, we often are working with people, and so we're helping them address the mirrors that they're not seeing, and address the lack of comfort in just also, like, people put a lot of charm on the spiritual world. Oh, I'm wearing these bracelets and I'm going to this, mantra session, and and they're saying all these fancy words, but it really has to boil down to, are you showing up on time? Are you paying your bills? Are you there for your children? Are you emotionally present with your partner? Or are you just looking like you have an understanding of something exciting? And there's a lot of spiritual bypassing happening. So
Yes.
our work, I always say to people, I'm a meat and potatoes person. Give me the meat and potatoes, because when they start talking all esoteric, they lose me. I'm like, no, how does that show me in your life? What's wrong? What's actually wrong? And then we can help you. So I think that that's really important in our work, is how it's grounded in the family, how it's grounded in the relationship. Have you exhausted your understanding of what's actually happening? Have you finished what you're meant to learn in that experience before you catapult somewhere else? And so for me, it's all about seeing it through. And it's really important, because it'll just recreate. I mean, we know that, but it's worth repeating, right? What's unfinished here will just show up. People will say, oh no, this guy's different, or this gal's different. Within 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, they're in the same patterns over and over and over again. And so we see that span across fractals from past lives, but we see it everywhere. To me is a spinning circle. And so these circles spin just like the flower of life. So it's like, where are these, so I'm looking at all the mirrors of where it arises in their life. And so we have to change all of them before we can change the actual, the situation.
Yeah. You're so right. Those self-limiting patterns, like we live in a mathematical world, like our lives are like the Fibonacci sequence, in that we just keep going round and in on ourselves until we have some realization. But we have to just own that where we are. But you talk a lot about clearing past lives in your website. One of your things that you have written down here is clearing past lives, ancestral, and also self-limiting patterns. So these patterns that can come all the way from past lives through ancestors, and we picked up some fresh, brand new ones, box fresh ones for this lifetime. So I'm really interested in how you go about doing that, because I know in my work, like the first and foremost thing for me to do in my own work and when I'm helping others is just to have an awareness of it. Just see it, just like put it on the table and look at it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I think you sort of mentioned it, but that it'll come up like we would muscle test what's the next thing to do. Maybe in the old style of the way we worked, it would show up more like this, but it would say, and then it would say past life. And then, so I would muscle test out a past life. I say, oh, it was in the 700s, you're a female, you're 12 years old. The other person that might be an enemy in this life is, a male, and he's 36. It's like, oh, it's your father. And so then we figure out what the dynamic was, and then Jen takes a look at the life. And so invariably Jen's talking about the life, and then the person on the other side of the, the screen is guy going, that's what's happening in my life now. And this is the mathematical thing that we see. And that happens all the time because the energy just speaks to the field and just wants to recreate itself. And so if we haven't changed the energy, then that's what's going to be, the circumstances may be slightly different, but the theme will always be the same. Oh, it's abandonment again, or an abuse situation, or it's whatever the situation is showing up in her life.
Mhm.
And then it's like, but the universe is inherently patient. You'll just,
You done with that yet?
you just do a circle, you circle right back. You
It's
visit
not
it
running out
again.
of time, is it? It's not running out of time. It's all good.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Keep
There's a
going.
fear choice and there's a growth choice each time. And then
Mm.
if you take the fear choice, the universe, okay, circle around again. But if you make the growth choice, whatever that may be, then it turns into a spiral. And now you're evolving. And so that then becomes the thing. But the fractal energy is crazy as we start to see the fact that these patterns repeat and repeat and repeat. And there's a lot of wisdom in the universe,
Mhm.
and that we don't quite understand again. So once we have that, then it's like, oh, and then we can, take responsibility, like we were saying before, and now we can shift these patterns. So the past lives are I mean, Jen will ask me, how many lifetimes has this person been
Because
dealing
I
with
can
this
tell,
pattern?
I'm like, oh, this pattern's in there. And the other day I said, how many patterns or how many lives has this person been slugging? 3, but we've had 7, 9 lifetimes, same thing. But it not for everyone, but the odd time that's important for us to convey. So spirit will give that information to me, and then I'll ask him to validate. So
I
Yeah.
love the fact that you complement each other so
oh,
brilliantly.
over and over. We finish each other's sentences.
It's
It's crazy.
amazing. And sorry, Carol, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say she finishes my sentences more than I finish hers. It's still something living with a psychic. I tell you, I come down the stairs about to say something, and then she said that happens all
That's actually what I wanted to ask you about, Jen. I wanted to ask you about, you've mentioned several times that you're psychic and you receive messages from spirit and so on. So I want to know a little bit more about that. Like, how do the messages come? Are they just felt, known words, image? How do your messages come through? What is it?
Everywhere and all the time, like all the time. Like I mean, they've evolved. So spirit would touch me, or sometimes I could physically feel it. They talk to me. I could see images. Like I know it. Like the knowing is probably the strongest yet hardest to kind of share. But it's anything from, like I said to Daryl the other day, that toilet's going to flood tonight, and because and I know, and we've had, like, I even one time I was like, we're gonna have a leak in the basement, and anyway, but the toilet was the funniest one. So I was making dinner, and Spirit's like, go have a glass of wine. And I was like, okay. So I went down to our cellar to grab a bottle of wine, and there the pipes were leaking, and we had a good amount of water, nothing to do any damage. But you know, how did I know that? Why? So, I mean, it's anything from something in our personal life to me working with clients and saying, if this doesn't change, or you are going this way, or you know, I'll give you the example of my experience with cancer. So they're just giving the little, so just to show that we have been put through our own journey. This is not just some glamorous, you know, nothing happens to us. They're always on it. It's not fair. So it's nothing like that. So anyway, so I was meeting some challenges in life, and I knew, oh, actually, when we first came together, I moved out to be with Daryl, so across our country of Canada. And so before I'm going out there, I saw a vision of him taking care of me with cancer, and I was like, oh, I don't know. We're just starting our life together. So I compartmentalized that, never told him anything about it. Anyway, went through some health stuff, but they were minor and dealt with. And about 2 months before we were going to get married, I said to him, I need to go to the doctor. There's something not sitting right. And I had a feeling it was that. Anyway, so I saw my gynecologist a week after we got back from our wedding. I was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And so at that point, it was advised from Spirit to have a full hysterectomy, which I did. So I went through the process, was on my healing journey. I was 2 months into it, and navigated, you know, my hormonal balances, and we were doing everything naturally to support that journey. And it was great. And I feel fantastic. A couple months into it, Spirit says it will come back if you do not learn all of your lessons. And so what we haven't shared, that I think is important to a lot of your listeners, is I was not always as strong in my feminine. I actually was very much in my masculine for a long, long time. And that came from a journey of feeling violated sexually by men, from the feminine is less than, I'm going to be an athlete, I'm going to charge forward, I'm going to reach my goals. I had a corporate job before that. I achieved quite high levels of success. And so when I went to raise my babies, when I stayed home as a mother, it was very difficult. And my spiritual awakening at 28 was because I was not bonded to my two boys. I was in a very much masculine role as a mom, and my son was struggling. And so the awakening was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, not with him. And so that's where it started. And so to fill in the blank, so I had a very overdeveloped masculine side, which has, it's not been that's not a bad thing. It's taught me a lot about my own leadership, my own sense of being able to protect myself and stand up. And I needed that for a long time. But coming into a man who had a highly developed feminine side allowed me to take my feminine back. And I allowed him to take his masculine back. So we stepped out of the shadow of which we understood, and we're operating in the masculine and the feminine. So anyway, going back to my story. So part of my learning with this uterine cancer was my rejection of the feminine. And I had rejected it so much. And it's very profound. I know. We just did a prophecy. It's on our website. The feminine continues to reject. It's in my first book too. We are just spiraling towards hormonal and infertility issues. You know, women need to embrace their feminine. We need to take it back, and we need to do it quickly, because the future of our generation, our children, like, it is really important, not only to our children, Spirit's reminding me, but to the planet. And so my own example of this, I had to understand it by going through it, and then I'm now modeling it and teaching it. And so 4 months to the day, Spirit was right. The night before my 6-month checkup, so I'm going in for my Spirit comes and says, cancer is going to be back. And I was like, why? I'm trying, I'm doing give it to me, I'll know. But so we went the next day, didn't say anything to the doctor. And he goes, oh, there's a lump here. And, right beside where the site was, sent me a requisition for the CT scan, happened to get lost for a couple days. I was like, why haven't they called yet? Anyway, about 5 days passed. And in that 5 days, we did everything and anything. The Spirit's like, okay, you're listening. We have your attention now. We did a lot of collective work that I was carrying for the collective. So I was carrying these themes that I spoke about. In addition, some of my own journey, more rejection of my feminine, and the anger that was still in there from the hurts, right? So anyway, that's a simple way of saying it. But we did everything that Spirit gifted us to. gifted us. The night before the CT scan to have this diagnosis and see what's next, Spirit came in and said, okay, we're going to remove it. We're going to, Daryl has this laser crystal, this Vogel crystal he uses. They said, Daryl, use your crystal and we are going to remove the cancer site, the cancer spot. And so he did it. And the next day we had the CT scan and the results, they were clear. And the doctor says, okay. 2 weeks later, calls me on a Saturday and said, I can't be with those results. I need to retest you. I've called people in Vancouver. I'm not comfortable. And we retest, and we said, of course, we'll retest, and it came back negative. So just to prove this, the validation of what our work was about. But so here, I think that gives a more accurate picture of our journey in terms of how we navigate our feminine and masculine, how it's revealed itself to us, and the sacredness that we've had to step into being teachers.
Yeah. It's an incredible story. I literally talk to you all day, and I kind of want to just be in your world and listen to everything, because there's so many other things that we haven't even talked about, but I don't want to take up your entire day. So what I do want to do though, however, Jen, is hear about your book. You've got a beautiful book. I can't remember what's it called.
The Way to Peace. So The Way to Peace is on Amazon, and it's a small story, which I think is great. It's a channeled book. It's about 60 pages. And it's really, Spirit advises us that just by reading it, you can receive a 17% stronger connection to the Akasha, because it really is breaking down the constructs of the mind, the why, the darkness, and how we're impacted, and how our mind is manipulated. And so it's not a fuzzy book. It's you should know this. So it's it's a good instruction manual as to why you need to be doing your inner work. And then when you understand, when you're in school, Spirit's yakking at me, they're like, and you're learning something, you're like, why do I have to learn this? This is now you understand on your purpose. You're like, now I understand why I need to know this. Now I understand why I'm going through this. So I think it's great. The second book that we're bringing out is going to be the body of work that we've talked about. It's like the meat and potatoes of the feminine, the masculine, the sacred sexuality, the instinctual nature. So that's on its way, and I've been busy working on that one.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I will, and I love a channeled book. There is something that I don't know whether this is I don't know. I've just read a couple of channeled books that have had a really profound effect on me, in that I feel like just in the reading of them, I've upgraded. They just kind of lift you up, even if you've not understood everything you've read. Something about just absorbing the words, even if you're kind of like glaze reading, which is what I call, when you get to the end of the page and you're like, oh God, what have I read? What have I just read? You have to go back to the beginning. But it doesn't really matter. The fact is that you've been there, you've been present. It comes in. So I love a channel book. I might hop onto Amazon and get one, because 60 pages. Love a short book. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's really powerful. Thank you, guys. First of all, they'll tell people how they can get in touch with you and how they can work with you, because I feel like you're really accessible, I have to say. I talk to a lot of people and I look at their websites and I'm like, that's quite an offering. But yours are really accessible, and I love that. So I just want to point that out so that everyone will go and have a look.
Yeah, no, thank you. Our website is thenatureofus.ca. And like you say, we have on there, Jennifer's prophecies are on there, and other channelings that came through that I think are all useful. How to get in touch if people want to work with us in a session format, that's there. The online, our workshops are on there, of course, but the online ones will be there in the next few months. So we're hoping, by the summer they'll be there. And I don't know, the book is on there, and just everything about us and so on. So so they can reach us.
I had a good poke around in there, and I was looking at the prophecies and I was thinking, God, this is really interesting, because prophecy is a big word. And before we got on here, Jen, you were saying it's kind of a difficult one to kind of really own. But actually you really do own it. So when you're saying prophecies, people are like, oh, so as you were saying, people instantly think of like Nostradamus, so they're going to tell us, when stuff's going to happen, or
There's like I predicted the LA fires. I mean, August of 2024. I was like, but at the time, it's not LA is going to have a fire. So Spirit keeps us completely off of anybody else's work, which I love. Like everything that we distill down from Spirit, we don't have to. There's no bibliography on our work, right? It is ours and ours alone. So, but I do know from a long time ago, like astrologers, and they have fancy ways of kind of understanding patterns and concepts. The work that comes through us is like, I think they're awakening codes. So the prophecies within them have very strong soul nudges, and they're trying to get people to remember, to remember, to remember. And in that, they'll talk about themes like I said, the fertility or the hormonal imbalances, and if the trajectory of 337 years, like why are they showing me that 337 years into the future, if this timeline isn't changed in the next 23 years, there's actually more abuse to the feminine. The feminine actually is in its attempt for equality, and it's an attempt to equalize power in the present way that we're going, like being more in our masculine, puts us, I'll just summarize it really quick, us in we're a threat to men. So think of if a man does not smell any female on his female anymore, and all of a sudden she's smaller than him, the primal energy of threat starts to you're a threat to me, and I can put you in your place. So actually the abuse cycle starts in even greater to a greater extent. So Spirit is saying, ladies, women, men, embrace the feminine, bring back the feminine, don't go down that road. And so the prophecies are anything from, as I mentioned, I talked about some of the US election stuff. One of the things they said recently is their Spirit is lifting all the veils off of everything that's been in shadow. And so there's a lot of reveal coming out right now, and you see it everywhere. The reveal is of the truth in terms of politics. So they'll share things like of this nature. So it helps people, I think, kind of understand their world a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's also a mirror, really, of our own shadow, right? It's on a collective level, but it's also on a personal level. And so it's like the world really is our extended body. And so, when there's wars out there, what's the war raging inside of us, right? And when we change this, because we're part of the collective, it has a massive impact that we don't recognize. It's like the holographic universe, in a hologram, every piece contains the whole. Right? So if you were to take a laser and shine it through the microphone we have here and bounce it off a couple of mirrors, you'd get, and it looks like another microphone again. And then if you shine a laser through the image, the holograph, and just one little piece of it, you would get another whole microphone. Every piece contains the whole. So we're a piece of the collective hologram. And so when we change us, we change the collective. You can't not do that. Mm-hmm. So this then becomes very interesting, because when we look at what's out there and, oh my God, look what they are doing, right? Say, well, what is it's going on in us that's contributing to this collective piece?
Yeah, and that's what we can do.
That's what we can do. So by doing, and as everyone embraces their inner work and embraces their shadow and gets to a place of inner peace, then that's what they're speaking to the field. That's what they're contributing energetically. And that will start to induct a resonance out there into the collective. And this isn't just a philosophy. We know this is true now with some of the experiments that were done in the cities when they brought in the meditators and they held peace in their bodies, and violence and crime and hospital room visits and car accidents all dropped. And as soon as they stopped holding that coherent, peaceful energy, they went right back up. So as we are able to anchor those deeper, peaceful, and more aligned with our divine nature, our essential nature of who we are, then that's how we contribute to that's Gandhi's be the peace you wish to see in the world. Those very wise words.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't even begin to put it any better than that. And I love the fact that you're putting this out in the world, and I love the fact that we're spreading this, and I know that hundreds of people will listen to this, hopefully thousands of people will listen to this podcast, and it will reaffirm and continue to spread this outwards? Because my question to you was going to be, how do we do this? But you've already said, like, it's just like everybody just has to do their own work, and they just have to be conscious that they're part of the collective, and out the ripples will go.
Integral to it. Yeah, they are important to it. And when they're not, we all lose out on that. So that's all they have to do, is to embrace their own gifts and their own life lessons, and that's really important. And that's it.
And the journey is essentially back to our souls, which we haven't talked a little bit about, but essentially that is the price we've paid, is we've lost connection to our soul energy. And so as we start to get that back, then we're aligned with, oh my God, your passion and your inspiration, what it is you want to contribute, and being on purpose, and your fire and the sacredness of life, and why we're here in the first place. So all that it's the journey well worth taking, but we need to do our dirt time.
It's the only journey worth doing, really. It's the whole reason, it's the whole purpose. I don't know what else it is. It's certainly not to gather stuff. So yeah. I'm so incredibly grateful to have met you and spent time with you. It was a really nourishing hour for me to just be with you. So thank you. And I hope that everybody else has gained as much from this conversation, because it's been beautiful. And I look forward to hearing more about everything that you do. And next time you've got your book out, give me a shout. We'll come on again. We'll have another chat. I would love to talk about sacred sexuality. I know all my listeners, their ears picked up when that came up. So
let's talk about sex.
Absolutely, sex sells, doesn't it? But we will come back and do this again. I really hope. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.